Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies. And on this episode, we are actually visiting a classic. We are going to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we're doing this because a new Texas Chainsaw movie is coming out later in the year, much later, in October. And the plan is to work our way through the entire franchise by the time we get there, which will have its ups and it'll have its downs.
Much like a chainsaw. What?
I guess you mean the motion of using a chainsaw?
Sure.
Because I think of the chain as just going in a circle.
Right, and circles go up and down.
I'm not going to argue with you, Tim. I don't think there's any
Well,
point.
how could you? It's impossible.
It's just I don't know. I feel like if I try and argue with you, Tim, I'm just going to look back in this day years from now and think, what did I do in my life? I wasted so much time just fighting something that couldn't be fought.
Just go with it. That's how I've gotten this far in this life. Is basically having people just put up with me exasperated.
Yes, I can relate. So we're going to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. I think I'll just give a full spoiler warning right now. I feel like it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you are not familiar with the plot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, go watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've said Texas Chainsaw Massacre a lot in the last 30 seconds.
Plus, it's based on a true story, so everyone knows what happened.
No, it's not. Shut up.
What?
It's based on a couple of, there's a couple of elements that are based on a thing. There's a couple of small details that are based on Ed Gein, who was a notorious killer. I'm not even sure what years he was active. I can't remember, but basically,
it was early in the decade.
Was it the same decade? Was it the 70s or 60s or?
Oh, I'm sorry, not the decade, the century. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to say like
30s,
maybe like 30s, 40s, around there.
But he's notorious enough that he loosely inspired at least parts of several different movies. The main ones being this, Silence of the Lambs, and oh god, I'm forgetting the other one. There's like three big examples that they always use. Oh, what was the third one? Oh, that's going to bug me.
I know those are the big two.
There's definitely a third one. Oh, that's going to annoy the shit out of me now. But anyway, so Texas Chainsaw Massacre, classic, kind of I almost say a prequel to the slasher genre. And I say that because to me the slasher genre, I think for a lot of people the slasher genre kind of begins with Halloween. That's kind of what made slasher movies what they were. I mean, obviously this has a lot of those elements in it. It has the final girl, it has, cast to get killed off. I do think there's a few things that make it feel a little bit, not as much of a slasher movie. There's a couple of things that feel like, okay, the formula's not actually been made yet. It's just kind of... the main thing being kind of the structure of it and how all the characters, barring the final girl, actually get killed off really quickly. Like, it's like over a 10-minute period, all the other characters go and it's just her for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, going back and rewatching it, I forgot how... I wouldn't necessarily say slow it was, but there's a good portion in the beginning where not a ton happens, and then there's a really quick succession of oh shit, a lot just happened.
Yeah, I think one of the things my memories played a trick on me. It's actually been, I think I watched it maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's not been that long since my last viewing, but it is that I often in my head think of them getting to the house, the house they're visiting, 10 minutes in. In my memory, that's where it happens, but it's actually like 30 minutes. So there's a good amount of stuff before they get there. Because I think in your head you remember the Hitchhiker.
I remember that. I thought that was really quick though. It seemed to go on a bit longer than I remembered.
Watching it again just now, I think the moments that I always forget are that they actually visit the cemetery to see if her grandfather's been grave robbed, because we open with these stories after the narration, the famous narration, of course, that pretends it's a true story, and it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though only one person actually dies with a chainsaw in this movie. False advertising, you bastards. But no, so they go and they check the graveyard, and then it's the Hitchhiker stuff, and we'll talk about that. And then it's the gas station, and then it's the house. But the Hitchhiker stuff and the other stuff on the other side of it, actually, you know, they take a bit of time in it.
Yeah.
I think what this movie has, because obviously it's really low budget, it was made for, I think, about $50,000 or $60,000 in total, which is even for the time period, that is like ultra low budget. I mean, Halloween is thought of as a really low budget movie, and that was $300,000.
Like, well, so, as I was rewatching it, I actually watched it on DVD.
Oh, you played.
I don't have it on Blu-ray yet, but the DVD really looked like you could tell.
Yeah, it was shot in 16mm. It looks really grainy. I will say the Blu-ray does look really nice. I mean, it still looks like it was shot in really grainy film. But the thing with Blu-ray is, I think a lot of people who aren't into like film to the extent where they understand this stuff don't get with some of these older movies, is that even the grain looks better on Blu-ray. Like, it's still there.
Oh,
it looks like actual film grain as opposed to just noise that you get on like DVD and VHS. And I think people miss it. So it actually is much more pleasing to look at, but it still looks grimy and rough, if that makes sense.
I do think that's part of its charm, though, because this is like the whole thing of it is it's, you know, it's in the South and it has this very like dirty like meat factory butcher shop kind of quality to it.
To the point where I don't understand why this group of characters wants to visit this house, because they get to this house that like Sally and Franklin being the guy in the wheelchair, and their brother and sister. They get to this house that their dad apparently owns, and I'm like, why did they want to visit this? It looks like a rundown crack house. What is?
Oh yeah.
You know, there's like, it looks ancient. There's like holes and things, and there's spiders everywhere. There's
it's definitely not the kind of place you'd like want to spend a lot of time at. Like, maybe you could drive by and be like, oh yeah, look, that's our old house, but you would never want to be like, hey, let's go in there and spend more than 2 minutes here.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. The movie has that grimy feeling to it. It's kind of what Rob Zombie has been trying to masturbate to with every single film he's ever made, and failed kind of miserably every single time.
That's actually one thing I was thinking about while watching this. Just like, oh, this is so much more effective than House of a Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects or something. Like, this has a very authentic like griminess to it. It feels like, as opposed to those other movies, which it feels like a very manufactured dirtiness, if that like makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just part of actually shooting it in the 70s. Maybe they, you know,
true,
to make it authentic now, you have to try really hard. You have to put a lot of effort into recreating it. Whereas and you know, so this is some factoids that I know kind of from memory in this movie, just from listening to commentaries or watching documentaries, you know, and it's been a long time admittedly, but I do vaguely remember a couple of details. Like, it took them a long time to shoot it because they shot it at weekends. They didn't have like a shooting schedule. They all had jobs during the week. It wasn't so they shot it at weekends. If I understand it correctly, they shot it in order, and because they couldn't afford multiple like sets of the wardrobe for like the actors, their clothes, they were wearing the same clothes every weekend, and for continuity's sake they couldn't wash them. So apparently they stank like so much by the time we're getting close to the end, which I think is really amusing.
I can imagine too, because it feels hot, so people are probably like so sweaty. And,
nothing makes me more uncomfortable watching a movie when they cut to a shot of the road and you can see the heat shimmering off the pavement of the road. It just looks like, oh my god, that looks like hell. It looks like a fresh set of hell.
And it's funny because I watched this yesterday, and like these last couple of days, it had really started to get hot here in LA. Like, we had actually had a pretty cool like spring up until now, but then the last couple of days have been in the 90s, and my apartment has just been really hot, and so it kind of like added to the effect of like, while I'm watching it, I'm also feeling like this heat like boiling up in my room.
Yeah, everyone feels sweaty and grimy. It's like everyone's kind of disgusting. Even like the heroes like already feel a little bit disgusting because they just look sweaty and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, opens with that famous narration, setting up the idea that this is based on a true story, even though it's not. And we get the famous shot of the armadillo on the road, which again, it's one of those things that you just remember from the movie. And then the shot of the the corpse on top of the graveyard, and we hear about the over the news radio. We hear someone's been robbing graves, and it sets things up. But then we get to introducing the characters, and I think the characters are they're kind of a mixed bag. I think it maybe helps that we don't have to put up with them for a long time.
Yeah, I mean I'm sorry, I forget the main girl's name.
Sally.
So she's okay. Franklin, he is so annoying.
Franklin is really annoying. He every time I watch it, I just I have a moment where I remember just as he starts talking, like, oh yeah, he's going to annoy the shit out of me. To the point I've never watched a movie and pleaded for the guy in the wheelchair to be killed as much as I did in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, it's a very weird feeling, because you think that would automatically elicit him some sympathy or something, but as soon as he starts talking and won't shut up, it's because he has this thing where he has this thing where he keeps talking, but he keeps you think he's finished his point, he's made about something, and he'll turn around and he'll just repeat the question. He'll be like, oh, does that look like blood? I bet that's blood, huh? Yeah. Oh, that's like blood. Maybe he won't come after us. Do you think he'll come after us? He never shut. Yeah. And then he gets really jealous of everyone else because they're having fun, and he starts making his faces and spitting in the air and whatever else he's doing. He's a really. And at one point he's got a sausage or something in his mouth as if it's a cigar, and he's just it's just weird. But I mean, other than those two, I really can't get much of a read on the other characters. They feel they're
just kind of there. They're slasher movie victims pretty much, because they don't last long enough to have much more to them. I think the real star of the movie, of course, is the griminess and of course the memorable villains. It's the family. It's Leatherface. Leatherface, who of course is one of the iconic, probably not as iconic as your Michael, your Freddy, and your Jason, but he's probably number 4 on the list if we're ranking the iconic. And he came first, which is funny. It's funny how the others. It's almost like they perfected the idea of the mass serial killer later on. Like Michael Myers made it the thing, and Leatherface was this prototype. But it kind of adds to his charm though, because he does feel kind of like the movie, grime, gritty, and all thrown together. And that almost is an insult to the movie. And I don't mean it that way. I just mean it feels very. You get this feeling that they ran out there and shot a scene because they had this bit of road for 10 minutes and they got their scene and they ran off. It feels like they were just scraping by with their stuff. So meet the hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker's just. First of all, he looks creepy. Why did you pick him up, you idiots?
Yeah, I think someone even comments oh no, he looks weird. Don't pick him up.
And then, but the funny thing is that annoying. Franklin's so annoying that when the hitchhiker gets in the car, and despite the fact that he looks like a serial killer, Franklin in front of him saying, "We picked up Dracula." I'm like, Franklin, don't be a dick. Don't say that in front of him. If you think he's a serial killer, don't insult him.
Yeah, it's the one thing you shouldn't do.
Yeah, play nice. Oh dear. And it says that this scene foreshadows a lot in the movie, because he talks about they're talking about the slaughterhouses and how they killed the things, and the hitchhiker's very, oh no, you don't want to use the fancy gun thing. You want to bash them over the head. You want to feel the kill, and you get the sense. And he talks about the head cheese and how they use all the different parts of the cow and stuff for different things, which again is foreshadowing, because when we get to, and this is the Ed Gein inspired stuff, when they get to the house, there's tables made out of bones, and there's Leatherface has made his mask out of skin, and it's all these things. Yeah,
it's lamps with skin on them, which is and I'm pretty sure a lot of these were things that Ed Gein did actually do, and that officers found at his house when they investigated or whatever.
As I understand it, he did I believe the amount of people he killed was less than what he just grave robbed. I think if I remember right, he grave robbed a lot for that stuff rather than killing people fresh, which he did do as well. But
I don't think his body count was actually that high. It was just a lot of
wait, I just remember the third movie as Psycho. Psycho's the third one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because there's a big thing with his mother. Yeah, it's Psycho. Psycho's probably the main one, actually. It's kind of weird that I forgot that one. But Psycho was the other one. Continue.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm again, from what I remember, I don't think his body count was too high. I think a lot of stuff he got from like raiding cemeteries and stuff.
Yeah.
I specifically remember he made a nipple belt, I believe.
See, part of me wants to believe it's a belt that goes round your chest and covers your nipples, but I know it's not.
Unfortunately,
no. So Hitchhiker's really creepy. It's a really good performance actually, because you feel unhinged. Like he feels unhinged the entire time he's in that van. Then he cuts himself, and you're just waiting for him to have an outburst and do something violent.
Yeah, again, in my memory, I felt like this was a little more disturbing than when I was rewatching it, and I feel like a big part of that was the music kind of got like a little goofy during this part. I thought like, I don't know. I think maybe it would have been better if it was a little more ominous or something, but it kind of had this like upbeat tempo for it. It made it like a little more comedic almost.
I don't remember the beat music.
I mean, maybe I'm misremembering it, but
I'll take your word for it. I mean,
yeah.
I genuinely don't remember music in that scene. I remember the sound of the van.
Yeah, I mean, unless it was like music in the van or something, or
oh yeah, they may have had the car radio on. Yeah, maybe that's where it was coming from.
But I remember I felt like it threw the scene off a little bit, and then also just how long it was also seemed like kind of weird to me, because again, just when I remember like him cutting himself, and then I remember that kind of being the big thing, but then I forgot there's actually a couple other beats to it, like him showing him the pictures and then making like the small fire in the car. They actually keep him in there for quite a while. I'm surprised like after he cuts himself, they're not like, okay, maybe you should head out now.
Yeah, I think the moment he pulls out that razor blade, you're like, all right. Sorry, sunshine, but you're gone. Good. And they get to the gas station with the old man, and obviously he turns out to be one of the family later, but which is why it makes it kind of weird that he's kind of warning them against going up there. But obviously the hitchhiker like marks the van with blood, like when he gets kicked out, and you almost get the sense that maybe he marked that for his father. So his father would know this was like the targets for the next thing, because you feel like I'd almost argue it's maybe a little bit contrived that every single character that they run into before they get to the place happens to be a part of this family, but it works quite well because everything kind of clicks together when you realize, oh wait, no, the hitchhiker like picks the victims, father sort of helps lure them because even though he's warning them not to go anywhere, he doesn't give them any gas. He's like, we don't have any left, so they have to go somewhere nearby.
And it also feels so like small and desolate that I would almost believe that these might be the only like 3 or 4 people in this town or whatever. Yeah.
And obviously the idea that they treat people like cattle, where they trap them in and kill them, like it feels very much like that. The kill scenes are quite effective though. It's one of the weird things about Texas Chainsaw that I think people forget is that there's not a lot of blood in it. Because I remember that there's not much blood, I was specifically looking for it, and there's a little bit. Like you can see a little bit on like Leatherface's arms at one point or things like that. But I think the first kill is especially effective.
Oh yeah, what I love about it is it feels so like methodical, like it's like there's no hesitation. It's so like, oh, like this is what we have to do, much like you would see a farmer killing a cow or something, like like there's no disregard for or no regard for that, like, oh, this is a human life or anything.
Yeah, it's just a simple bash in the head with a hammer. And obviously that relates back to all the stuff about the cows and the cattle when they were talking about it before, but I think what makes it perfect though is the door slam after it. Is this Leatherface just slamming that metal door shut. It's like terrifying. And then of course it cuts out to his girlfriend outside, and we get the famous ass shot, which feels it would feel gratuitous because it is very much, oh, here's her ass in your face as she's walking towards the house. But there's some legit filmmaking stuff going on here because it makes the house feel so imposing because it's it's low angle, the house looks huge, it looks so much bigger than her.
It's so funny is like this scene is so well done. I actually don't even really pay that much attention to the ass because like it's just like the angle and the sky is so blue. It looks so good.
You're because the kills just happened. You're too drawn into the tension. But it's like whenever I see a clip of it on its own and I'm not like set up for it, I'm like, oh, that's a really gratuitous ass shot. But because we get to the remake obviously later in the year, but like the remake redoes that shot, and I remember that feeling more. Oh, here's Jessica Biel's ass because this was a sexy shot in the first movie. But no, so she goes in, she gets the hook kill. She's putting the hook, and she's not quite dead yet actually. But that's when he brings out the chainsaw. But he never actually. He starts cutting up the first victim after he's dead, but he doesn't kill him with the chainsaw. This is important because not a lot of chainsaw kills. And then not soon after that, the curly-haired guy goes looking for them. He's like, "Oh, maybe I'll go around to this. I'll go looking for them." Because he stumbles into the house and he gets killed as well. Actually, I want another famous moment that's really works really well is but the girl's killed before she goes on the hook. That she almost gets out of the house. I love that she gets just out the front door and then gets grabbed and like she's kicking and screaming and he pulls her back into the house. There's this neat idea of her almost getting out and just being grabbed at the last second.
And again, it really maybe I'm repeating myself a little bit, but or maybe it's because all the earlier talk about cattle and meat and stuff, but I can't really think of any other movie that does this where the humans feel like animals, like the way he grabs it, the way you would grab like a a dog or a cat that's trying to run out the house.
Yeah, that's a good observation actually. Yeah, obviously the set design here is great. Done in a really grimy way because there's like things hanging from everywhere and there's just grimy, gritty shit all over the place. So at this point we're left with just Sally and Franklin, and Franklin's been annoying and he's been like, "Oh, I'll come with you. Oh, I'll take." And she's like, "No, Franklin, don't come with me." It's like, like they bicker for a bit actually, but it's getting late, and they come searching for them together. And poor Sally's like forcing this wheelchair like through the woods because Franklin insisted upon coming, and Leatherface shows up and performs the one chainsaw kill that we get, which is Franklin, and he dies. And I'm going to criticize the movie a little bit here because I do think that the following chase sequence goes on a little bit too long, especially the first part of it where it's just Sally running in the woods screaming.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I like when they got to the house, but up until that.
Yeah, because when we got to the house, there was like things going on. There was like trying to duck into other rooms. I was going up the stairs. She was like sort of double backing on herself so that she could get away from him. There was actual things, but the actual chasing in the woods though, after the first minute of it, it was like, okay, I get it. She's running in a straight line, screaming, and I think that's what makes it more annoying though, is that she's constantly screaming the entire time. And you kind of like, oh, I almost want to just catch her and kill her now because she's been really loud, and it's grating on my ears.
Something with that family. I don't know what it is, but
they're really whiny. They feel really whiny and annoying. This is the thing. I mean, she's not as bad as Franklin is. Don't get me wrong, and she has been chased by a chainsaw wielding maniac, so I sympathise.
Yeah.
But as I'm watching a movie and she won't shut up. But yeah, so she ends up getting to the gas station once she doubles back. And actually, I love that Leatherface like chainsaws his own door.
Yeah.
Like, he cuts through his. I'm like, it's your door.
There's got to be an easier way to get through.
Like, even if she locked it, do you not have a key or like? Yeah. That'd have been really funny though if he turned the chainsaw off and then pulled out his keys and like slowly, like it would have really changed the dynamic of the scene. I think.
And I feel like I might be more annoyed about this in other movies, but I think it kind of works in this movie that there's a lot of like back and forth. Like usually in movies it'll progress. Like you're in one location, you go to the next and the next and the next or whatever. Or if like you're in a house or something, you go deeper and deeper. And like here, it's like, they're you see some characters at the house, and then you see she's in the woods and she like runs to the house and she goes in, then she jumps out. Then she goes back to the gas station, then it gets back to the house. But I actually kind of like this series of events. Like it makes it feel like, oh, there's nowhere you can run. Like everywhere you go, it's
to go back to the metaphor of cattle. It makes her feel like that she's like, she's fenced off. Like she can get so far, but like you know, the gas station with the dad's the final fence. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
like this is where you get stopped. And he beats her with a broom, which is kind of silly in a weird way. He just keeps hitting her with this broom. But he takes her back to the house. He runs into the hitchhiker, and we get the sense that, oh, this is one family. And we didn't mention actually when she's in the house the first time, she runs into the grandfather and this corpse. A little bit of trivia about the corpse that's with the grandfather. That it looks female. That's a real skeleton.
Oh wow.
Do you want to know why it's a real skeleton?
Why is that?
Because at the time it was cheaper to buy a real one from India than it was to buy a fake one.
Wow. Is that still the case today?
I've not looked into it, Timmy. I don't imagine. I imagine there's probably rules against this now. This feels like something they got away with because it was like before regulations and like. I mean, imagine like bringing out a real skeleton and setting it up on a chair and be like, telling the actress, right, you have to run into this. Kind of, you know, like. If I was an actor, I'd be like, you know what? It's not worth this.
You know, maybe we should pay the extra $10 to get like. Isn't there like a high school science classroom that you could just borrow like from?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it looks very real. I mean, it should look realistic. It is real, but I mean, obviously you want it to look realistic, so you'd probably have to put some like goo on it and make it look a bit more meaty. Yeah. Kind of thing, so which I guess is what would cost the money, but
and also I like that she does like kind of a badass like jumps through the window to escape.
Well,
the first jumping through a window.
Yeah, so they get back to the house and she's like tied up and like they have her for dinner. You can choose how to interpret that sentence however you like. But they're basically just being cruel to her and she's like whining and it's a very famous scene, of course. It's her sitting at the dinner table while they're eating God knows what, might I add.
Yeah, this like the first kind of like really big weird thing with the grandpa, they slit her finger and then the grandpa starts sucking it. That scene is like what like really freaked me out as a kid, because I think I watched this pretty young, like maybe before like I saw any other really big franchises, or when I was just getting into horror movies, and it just seemed like such a weird detail to me, like why is he.
I think what gets me about the grandfather is that I legitimately don't I thought he was dead, right? I thought the entire, because he never really moves, and it wasn't until he sucks the finger that I'm like, oh, he actually is alive. I thought they just had like their dead grandfather like propped up in a chair, because he was so still, he was so sort of just immobile,
and he looks very effective because he looks like a corpse.
Yeah. So yeah, but basically they try to get her to kill him to kill her, and he can't quite do it, and this actually leads to her escape. And at this point it's like dawn, like the sun's coming up, so that they're having a very late dinner. But she's running out, and this is where we get this. But when she gets to the truck driver like kind of helps. It runs over the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker gets crushed with this truck. Which I want to point out like, just how sort of violent this is. As he's chasing her, you really get this sense of how demented this family is through it, obviously. But he's just like swiping that razor blade at her back, and she's getting cut as he's chasing her. It's really, really dark, and you can sort of tell just how you're just in hell. You're in like you've entered this deranged, like incest-ridden hillbilly psychopath family kind of vibes.
And it's such a different kind of killer than we we'll end up seeing in a lot of these other slasher movies. Like most killers are very stoic and like I don't want to say graceful, but I guess kind of graceful. Yeah, well, they feel very frenetic. And
Leatherface is very frantic, and even just the dynamic that when the dad brings Sally home at the end and he sees the door, he starts hitting Leatherface, and Leatherface gets scared from his father because he's in trouble for ruining the door. But it's good. But so Leatherface is chasing her with a chainsaw, and she gets in a truck and just escapes narrowly, and no more. And we end on shots of Leatherface like spinning around, holding his chainsaw up as the sun rises. It's a pretty glorious final moment.
I like the truck driver kind of just runs off Like,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one of the things I like is she gets in this pickup truck, and the guy who's driving it is just sort of turning around every. So you can see him
yeah,
in the front, just sort of looking behind, like, what the hell's going on? But no, that's the movie. It's a very simple film. It's very short. It's like 80 something minutes. It's and I think, yeah, the characters or whatever, I don't think at least the victim characters, the family, of course, are a lot more interesting because they are this demented and they feel like this grimy, dirty, like, just, yeah, again, everything Rob Zombie wishes he had in his movies. And the dynamics are very interesting. The idea that Leatherface, despite being a deranged killer, it's like he's been taught by his father that people are cattle, and that's like how he functions. But he's not like, you never feel like there's a danger of him turning around and like chainsawing his family. Like they are,
right.
For whatever reason. Makes me wonder, where's the mother? Like who is the mother of the? If there was a mother, I mean,
Sure.
I think some of the other films imply that like the kids aren't necessarily born into the family. That's more like kidnapped and
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, I'm kind of excited to go through all these sequels because this is the only one that I have a pretty decent memory of. I'm pretty sure I've seen most of, if not all, the other movies, but especially with these original sequels, I couldn't really tell you much about the plot.
The only one I have not seen is 3, and I'm looking forward to it because I don't think it's meant to be great, but I've heard it's like just a sort of typical slasher movie with Leatherface, and I'm like, I'm down for that. I'm down for a simple slasher movie. I remember liking 2. Next Generations. Well,
that's a big one with like McConaughey and Zellweger, right?
Yeah, the movie that they tried to block from being released once they got famous because it was on the shelf.
Really?
Yeah, because they're like, oh no, I don't want anyone to know that we were in that, and here it is. Oh dear.
Well, I'll be excited to see that one.
That stuff, we're going to do these sort of roughly once a month, slightly quicker than that, really, because we have to get them done by October for the new one coming out. And there's actually 3 different franchises we have to work our way through for October, so expect a couple others to start up soon.
Ooh, fun.
It wouldn't take too much searching to find out which ones it'll be, but yeah, that's what you can look forward to. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a classic. I think it's a classic because of the way it's shot, the grimy feeling of it, the craziness of the villains, the attention to detail with the stuff like the set, and just the kind of, like, again, very frantic. The way it treats its victims like they are cattle, it feels very inhumane, and you kind of feel that sort of, that you feel that as you're watching. You feel how inhumane this is, that these characters have just stumbled into this like living hell.
And it's like everything about it is so, sloppy, and it is like a lower budget film, but I think that helps with in the beginning when they're saying like, oh, like, this is a true story and blah blah, and then everything about it
almost feels, because of it being shot so like quickly, and because of it it's grimy look, it almost feels like a snuff film. Like it has that feeling to it. So no, so there's a reason why it's lasted, and obviously the idea of a Leatherface chainsaw wielding maniac is a big thing. That's the reason why slasher villains became a big deal, and he's kind of the first one, so that's cool. So ratings.
Okay, I mean, yeah, this is a classic, but it's not my favorite classic, so
I agree with that.
I can't give it a perfect score, but I'm still gonna give it a really high one. I was kind of flowing between an 8.5 and a 9, but I think I'll go ahead and give it a solid 9. If anything, just for its kind of lasting appeal and the history of it.
That's fair. I'm going to go with 8.5 myself. I think obviously it's a good movie. It's a classic for a reason, but I do think, watching it and comparing it to other good horror movies, there is like as much as the roughness of it does help how it feels, and it gives it that tone. It does, like, there are moments later on where the chase goes on a little bit too long. There's, a couple of things like that. So it'd be nice if I cared about the characters a little bit more. But
if they put out a special edition that had like 35% less Franklin, I think, this could be like top tier territory.
Yeah, I think it's great, but I definitely don't watch it as much as I do Halloween or
Right.
other stuff like that. So it's definitely not as high for me on the scale as those, but it's really good. It's really great. It's a classic for a reason. And if you haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, by all means, fill in your classic hole.
Yep.
So,
watch 4 more classics and get a free sandwich.
I don't know. I don't know if I trust the sandwich that comes from the people in this movie. They probably intestines from Joe inside it.
True.
So there you go. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We will have Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 sometime in the near future, so you can look forward to that. But let us know what you think of this movie in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to help us out even a bit more, go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Check out some of the cool bonuses up there if you want to help us out and support this channel. Get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates, individual Twitters. I'm at Wibble89, Tim's at Tim Vergulish. But that is us, so thank you very much for watching once again. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.